Hi, and welcome to Calligraphy. Calligraphy is a PHP framework. It is a framework that is based on the PHP language mainly. Unlike other frameworks of that kind, such as Laravel or Symfony, Calligraphy is a small and a very light framework that can get you up to speed very quickly on building projects, smaller kind of projects in PHP. It is a framework that is based on an MVC architecture, so a model view controller architecture. If you want to know more about what this architecture is, you can search it online, or perhaps you are already familiar with it if you've worked in the past with other frameworks such as Laravel or Symfony. Um, Calligraphy is completely open source. You can find the entire code on GitHub. That is the page that you see right now. There are no contributors at this stage of the game. I am the sole coder for this framework. In the future, we might open it up for other people to contribute to the code, but for the time being, it is still relatively new, and we want it to get everybody to start using it a little bit before opening up for other programmers to come and help. To get straight to the point, so back to Calligraphy. Like we said earlier, Calligraphy is a PHP framework. It does use PHP versions 7.0 and beyond. It has not been tested on earlier versions of PHP. Anything that is less than a 6, I would highly doubt that it would work, but it has not been tested. In terms of the SQL language, or the database language that it uses SQL through an adapter. We highly recommend that you use MySQL with this. In terms of the MySQL version, it supports 5.6 and beyond. We will not go through the examples that we have for Calligraphy. We will not go through the whole process on how to install a PHP server or a MySQL server on your local machine. We are assuming that this is already on in your system. What we're gonna get straight to the point is on how to get the version cloned on your local machine, and how to get it to be functional from your own system. In terms of what you need to get the framework going, basically all you need is the GitHub. Okay, you do need Composer on your in your system, in the local the server that you have. Composer, as you know probably, is a way to package any PHP code. We are going to use Composer to get all the dependencies that Calligraphy uses. There are a bunch of dependencies that are necessary for this framework to work. Most of them are also implemented and developed in PHP. There are 4 of them. Um, One of the main ones that we use in this framework is Pug, or PHP Pug, also known as Fug for PHP. So Pug is a language that is meant. It's a scripting language, really, that is meant to kind of replace a regular HTML coding, and it's meant to be able to create UI templates. Okay, HTML templates and HTML views, which is really the V part of an MVC structure. Pug is quite, I'm not going to say easy. There's a bit of a learning curve, but it's very, very similar to HTML, except that the syntax is a little different. We will get through some videos that will explain how we can use Pug. Otherwise, you do have the references from the documentation of Calligraphy to go read more about this language. So that's one dependency. There's another dependency that is used and is very important in the case of a framework, and that is the validation. It's a validation third party called GUM, and that validator helps validate any input that you might want to fetch from a user form from the UI. It saves you a lot of time instead of programming manually what inputs or how you want to validate certain inputs, such as an email or a phone number or an address and so on. GUMP is really a library that does all of this for you, and Calligraphy integrates it in a very easy way as part of the framework, and it could be used directly through very easy to use methods. The third one, which is also very important, especially if at some point you do intend to put your code in a production server, is the .env. If you've used any framework in the past, whether in PHP or in Node.js or JavaScript or anything like that, the .env file are really the files that store your environment variables. They are stored directly on the machine, and they could help you make a distinction between those global variables that vary from your local server, meaning your local machine, and from your production server, without necessarily having to constantly make changes to the code on either one of those servers. So .env makes it very easy to define what kind of variables are specific to your local server and what other kind of variables are specific to your production server. And when you move from the local to the production, by just simply changing your .env file, it will take into account those global variables across the board. The fourth one, which we might not necessarily test as part of the examples in all the videos that we have, is called Simple Image, and Simple Image is a way to create or to manipulate images in the general sense on the server side. Okay, and again, it's a PHP library, and so most of the code is executed on the server. I don't want you to think that this is image manipulation that is done on the client side, like JavaScript does for you. No, no, no. This is really happening on the server side, and it could do, great things such as cropping images, such as superimposing certain images, such as creating dynamic images, and things like that. Hopefully, we will get the chance to show you some examples on how this works, and the reason why we have it in a framework such as Calligraphy is really to give to give you guys the potential to even do some UI work without necessarily having to deal with JavaScript. The beauty of Simple Image is if you want to be able to create dynamic images that are done and computed on the server side, it can be an absolutely fantastic library for you to use. So that takes us through, the dependencies. Again, you do not have to worry about any of those from the moment you use Composer. The Composer will get you all the packages that are needed for Calligraphy to work properly on your machine. Now, Calligraphy has an extensive documentation, okay? It is divided into 8 or 9 parts, and each and every part, takes you progressively through the different pieces or the different modules within Calligraphy. There are some extremely important modules that are not just specific to Calligraphy, but they are really about the framework itself. So concepts like crowding, concepts like requests, concepts like what a model is, what relationships are when we talk about databases, what validation is, what a controller is, what views are. So all these are very important concepts in the world of any framework. and the documentation that is provided as part of Calligraphy can help you significantly understand all this material. For some reason, my Microsoft wants to update, but we will do that later. So that's, I believe, our introduction video. There's still a lot to do in terms of the framework. We try as much as possible to keep it up to date and to keep evolving it, and we make sure that any code that you have or any version that you have is not altered significantly by the modifications that are being done on the code itself. So we hope that you like Calligraphy. The next videos are going to be super interesting. Okay, the immediate next one, we are going to show you how you could install Calligraphy on your local machine very quickly. So I will see you in the next video.